Welcome to this episode of the Cork Creative Podcast. We started this podcast to provide all the wonderful people working imaginatively and innovating in the creative arts and in business a platform to discuss their journey to now, plans for the future and lessons learned. If you would like to learn more, please visit corkcreative.ie. I am Patrick Kiley, your host. I am the founder of Flux Learning Limited, a digital education company proudly situated in Clonakilty, County Cork, where I live and work. I am delighted to welcome Louise Bunyan to the podcast. Louise is Ireland's #1 LinkedIn trainer and is a guru of all things digital marketing. She's an award-winning digital marketing consultant, blogger, writer and founder of smartfox.ie, which specialises in LinkedIn training for job seekers, sales and business development teams and students. Louise is a well-known speaker on LinkedIn, frequently delivers webinars on the topic, and has also launched her own online LinkedIn school with a suite of LinkedIn training courses from introductory through to masterclasses for job seekers and sales professionals. She is also a published short story writer and runs a writing group. So we certainly have a lot to discuss, and we will address Louise's interesting career and decision to set up SmartFox, her pivot to online learning and consultancy, her plans for the future, and her insights about what training and development in Ireland will look like post-pandemic. You are very welcome to Cork Creative, Louise. I first met you when you were delivering a LinkedIn training course at the Brook Park Business Centre in Dunmanway in what seems like a millennia ago in 2018. Then I think it is fair to say that your work and training courses took you all over Ireland. An obvious first question is, how has your 2020 been?
Yeah, so I think my 2020, like other people's, it feels like it's been about 10 years rolled into one. It was a very strange time, and like everybody, it was quite scary at different times, especially I suppose at the beginning when we didn't know what was happening, and then the lockdowns, and then summer came, and that was great. We were able to leave our counties, but bizarrely, looking back, it was also for me a very productive period, and like I was very lucky in that I started doing a lot of online one-to-one training kind of the end of 2019, the start of 2020. And as you know, I was developing like my online school as well. And it was just about ready to go the end of Feb at the start of March. So I was okay. But when I had a lot of conference talks lined up, and I had a lot of in-house training lined up as well, which, were my bread and butter. And then initially they were postponed and they were pushed out until the summer. And then I suppose then the realization came that they had to be cancelled and that we would pick them up again at another time. So, I think just like everybody's just a really strange year. And I like the way people are thinking now that your birthday doesn't count, in 2020 or 2021, that like it's just a nothing year. So like we're not aging, that birthday doesn't count. So that's the way I'm looking at it.
Fair enough. We have discussed this previously, and I think it is a really inspirational story for Cork Creative listeners to hear. An ode to resilience and fortitude. Can you describe your career in marketing and your decision to found SmartFox?
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Patrick. That's really nice of you to say. So I don't have a typical that straightforward path to marketing, and whenever I get asked this question, I always just wonder, why didn't I, for whatever reason, when I did my leaving cert, why was it never an option for me to do marketing in UCC or UL? We didn't know what marketing was back then. So I would have done my leaving cert in 1999. And I studied media and communications and geography in Mary I in Limerick, which is part of UL. I didn't get the points to do communications in UCD, and I'm still kind of a bit bitter over that. So that course is actually brilliant. It's a 4-year degree course. And in our 3rd year, we go on co-op. So I would have actually run the Student Union newspaper for 6 months. And then I went to study in Houston, Texas, for 6 months as well. So that was incredible. And then I graduated in 2003 and I worked in a bar in Watergrass Hill for about 7 months. And Facebook was only beginning to start around then. And I'm going to sound so old now, but Bebo was the big thing. And we actually thought Facebook was really boring. It was like white and blue and you couldn't have colored backgrounds or anything like that. Little did we know what was about to come. So then I did a postgrad diploma in PR and event management in the Fitzwilliam Institute in Blackrock in Dublin. And I would have done quite a bit of PR around that time after that. And then I lived in Dublin in the Celtic Tiger, and I worked for quite a well-known high-profile restaurant, and I was the girl in the office, but I was also doing events, and they were the in-house caterers for Brian Thomas, so and really high-profile events. So I remember in 1 week we had the launch of the designer Florian BTs, so we were doing all that, and then that was on a Tuesday, and on the Thursday we were doing the launch of the big Top Shop at the top of Grafton Street. So there was a couple of cocktails left over from that. So that was a nice perk of the job. And then I did an about turn, and then I went into the public sector with a quango called Pubble, and no marketing now whatsoever. And that was administering childcare funding. And you know, that was a great job. I worked with amazing, wonderful, lovely people. I have such good friends from that time. And the recession was beginning to hit around my 2 years into it. So I took voluntary redundancy, and then I went to New Zealand. I bought a one-way ticket to New Zealand because I didn't know whether I was going to be gone for 6 months or for 3 months or for 9 months. So I said I just buy a one-way ticket. So I got fundundancy money from Pubble, so voluntary redundancy. And I did what we call CELTA, so Cambridge English Language Teaching to Adults. So that's probably one of the highest qualifications you can get in English language teaching. So that took a month, and that was actually really intense. So I went off to New Zealand. I backpacked around for about 4 months, North Island, South Island, and then I started teaching English a couple of hours a week in this beautiful school run by an American company called Kaplan. And I ended up staying for 2 years. And I also volunteered at the Rugby World Cup when it was in New Zealand, but obviously I was living in Auckland at the time. So I volunteered there as a media assistant. So really all of that was, if you want to call that like the postgrad in PR, event management, the Rugby World Cup, that's all offline marketing. So nowadays we would kind of look at that as like a bit old school, you know, but still really important. So then I came back to Ireland in 2012, and I couldn't get a PR job. I thought I'd walk into one because of the Rugby World Cup experience, but I couldn't, because the feedback I was getting was that, oh, you don't have any digital marketing experience. And I knew this was really serious because friends of mine that I had done my postgrad with were all directors now in PR companies, and they were all going back getting certificates and diplomas in digital marketing because they had to, even though they were quite senior. So I was really lucky. Stars aligned and the planets aligned. And my local paper, the Avondhu, so I'm from Fermoy in North Cork, they had an ad for this initiative called Springboard. So Springboard courses. So I saw one in UCC for creative digital marketing, and I applied and I got a place. So that was amazing. So I'm also quite into like horses and horse riding. So I started going to stables in Watergrass Hill, and then I ended up bartering with the owner of the stables. So I would do all his digital marketing in return for free horse riding lessons. So I did everything. I did everything. So I rewrote the entire website. That's where I got my hands dirty with SEO. I set up a YouTube channel. I was taking videos. I set up a Facebook page, Google Places. My friend is a graphic designer. We got a new logo and branding done. I was doing MailChimp. So I was doing all this amazing work. And so then next step, I got an interview and I graduated with Morgan McKinley recruitment agency. So they're a global recruitment agency and they're headquartered in Cork. And that was around 2013, the summer of 2013. And I got the job. And a big part of that was the fact that I had bartered with the owner of the horse riding stables, and I could show all of this work that I was doing. But critically, I was able to show the impact it had on the business. The fact that like he got so many new customers, and he actually had to build like a new set of stables because a lot of his customers were young women with a lot of disposable income who actually ended up buying horses and stabling them there. So I think that's a big thing. We can get carried away with all the social media and this and that, but at the end of the day, you have to generate money for the business. So I was able to show that I was able to do that. So I got the job in Morgan McKinley, and the recruiter who had got my CV and put me forward for the role told me later that I was a wild card, but she just had a really good feeling. So that was really nice to hear. So my role at Morgan McKinley, I was there for about 3 years, and a global online marketing specialist. So they actually had 9 global offices at the time, and I was working specifically in the online team, which is basically like websites primarily. So you think of recruitment websites, think of all the work that site has to do, posting jobs. It has to be typed back to the recruiter. When you submit your CV, how does it end up in the recruiter's inbox? How does it end up in the database? So a lot of functionality around those sites. So I would have worked across more than 17 global websites on the go at any one time. So massive learning curve. And so then after that, I went to teamwork.com, and I was a content marketer. So we won Best Marketing and Communications Blog in 2016. But unfortunately, I got made redundant. Me and my team got made redundant after 8 months there. So then I went into another phase of another chapter. So I interviewed full time for 5 months. So I've written about this, I've blogged about this quite openly, the candidate experience. It's quite grueling. And then I decided I'd become a freelancer, because the longer you're out of digital marketing, it moves so fast, and I was just worried I was going to start getting left behind. So I did a Leo, Start Your Own Business course, and in Fermoy. And lo and behold, in April 2017, Smart Fox was born. So I can just tell you a little bit about Smart Fox. So yeah, Presently now, I'm a LinkedIn training specialist. But back when I founded Smart Fox in 2017, I was all things to all people. I was copywriting websites. I was a freelance digital marketing consultant. I was doing training. I was training in everything, like all social media. And LinkedIn was just one of the many things that I did. However, gradually over time, because of the lack of LinkedIn experts in Ireland, and because it's such a tricky platform in that it's B2B, and because it has a sales element and it has a job seeker element, my background in recruitment and my knowledge of LinkedIn, even at that stage, was far beyond other people's. And I didn't realize this myself. It was other people who started coming to me saying, will you redo my LinkedIn profile if I give you my password? Like, how much would that cost? And then companies then started coming to me saying, oh, I hear you do some LinkedIn training. You know how difficult it is to find a LinkedIn trainer. So I began to own that space. And then I suppose outside of that, I am a committee member with Network Cork. So I managed the social media channels there for 2 years. So I grew those channels to over 17,000 followers, and we were nominated twice in Best Twitter category at the Cork Digital Marketing Awards. And we're a charity, so we have no budget whatsoever. And we've trended nationally at number 1 3 times last year in 2020. And then that brings me to today. So I've just started working in-house on a contract role with VMware as talent marketing specialist. So it's absolutely perfect for me. It's back to my recruitment marketing roots, but on a global scale, so across all their offices. And I'm really excited. And it's just been like an amazing experience. So as you can see, maybe if I had gone straight from, leaving cert into, my undergrad in marketing, I mean, I look at the odyssey there, from everything that I've done. So it's not been straightforward, but most of it has been fun.
A lot of people don't take a direct route to their chosen calling or profession, Louise, so it's a great story.
Thank you.
And now your story brings you to Clonakilty,
Yes.
Louise. And how has the move to Clonakilty and working from the Ludgate hub in Skibbereen changed your work and your approach to training?
Well, I have to say it's very difficult, because when it's a beautiful day, all you want to be is on the Long Strand. I'm obsessed with the Long Strand and Inchydoney and Lough Kyne. So that is an occupational hazard, I think, of living in Clonakilty and working in Skib. But So work-wise, nothing has changed really because I rented a desk. I had a co-working desk in Fermoy in a facility run by the county council. And I think like I am that digital nomad. And so as long as I have a laptop and internet, I can work. So that's been amazing. But what I have to say, what I've absolutely loved is just the atmosphere in the Ludgate is fantastic. There is a really good atmosphere, like it's really good crack. And I think for me as a newbie to Clonakilty in West Cork, it's just been so lovely to meet other businesses, other employees, and other solopreneurs, and just to meet new people. But also it's been great for networking, and there's so many skills and there's so many really interesting businesses. Like it is a real hub of entrepreneurial people and innovation in the Ludgate. The facilities are amazing. Like the internet is just second to none, and you can have like private rooms. If you were to deliver a webinar or have a meeting, they're all set up for that. So yeah, it's just hard. It's hard knowing that that there are beautiful beaches around, but like, you got to work. You can't get to them.
I must say that I do on occasion stop and remind myself of how lucky we are to effectively be living in a resort, effectively in West Cork, with the beautiful scenery and beaches. Louise, you've always sought to innovate. You were hiring a virtual assistant when I'd only heard of them on Side Hustle Nation or other US-based podcasts. Is this something that you feel you have a predisposition towards, or is it a skill that you've had to develop when you are training in this fast-moving professional networking world?
Oh, I would say it's a skill that I had to nurture and develop. I would never have thought of myself as innovative at all. How mad is that? But I think from networking and from the businesses that I've been fortunate to meet. So remember, before the pandemic, like I was driving all over Ireland and I was going in-house into so many different companies, from a lot of engineering companies actually, because what I found is they would maybe have a small sales team, but they would have no in-house marketer. So there was always that gap there. And they're so clinical in what they do. So I actually learned loads from just training engineering teams. I've trained solicitors, I've trained hospitality, I've trained private sector. But I think it's those engineering firms, like some of them I've been into, and they have little signs on the wall, like 5 tips to have like better meetings. So really taking process and bringing it up to the next level. So that's one element of it. I think another element is from my networking and from Network Cork and from other networking organizations, just talking to other solopreneurs, like one person businesses. And what I found was that I was getting quite bogged down and burned out by what I call death by 1,000 paper cut tasks. So for example, invoicing, if I was running a workshop in a hotel, I'd have 15 people. Some of them would book through Eventbrite, but some of them would request to be invoiced, which is fine. But I'm only one person. So I would have to manually create maybe 6, 7, 8 individual invoices and email them out. And that's one task. But then imagine you have to do your VAT returns and you're combing through emails and you're printing out invoices and you're filling out Excel docs. And one time, Network Mayo asked me to go up there and deliver a talk, and it didn't happen for whatever reasons, but a few of the networks, Network Galway, Network Mayo, Network Roscommon, asked me to come up there. And all I could think of was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to contact like 5 hotels and get quotes. And they won't give me an overall quote. They'll say tea and coffee by 15 people at €2.50 each, lunch at this, lunch at that. So I'd heard of this lady who was a virtual PA who was working for a few hours with a friend of mine. And I just thought that was really appealing because I knew I needed help with all those tasks, but I wasn't in a position to take on somebody part-time. And I think my own experience of like being made redundant, and this is something I'm very aware of, is that I was always very hesitant to take on a member of staff because of that commitment, but also what if for whatever reason I had to let them go? And that's something, that I've really thought about. So this was perfect because you're outsourcing the work to an individual. It's a service that they're providing for you. And so, yeah, I did. I got a virtual assistant, a wonderful lady, and gradually kind of trained her up on how to do various tasks. And now what she can do in an hour is phenomenal. Like, she has a little timer clock and you can see exactly how much time is being spent on this and that. And she's not on, like me, she wouldn't be on Twitter half the time or LinkedIn. She's like, she does, the timer goes on and then she just gets through everything. And so within no time, she had 5 quotes from 5 hotels up in the Northwest. She had all the quotes worked out. She told me the pros and cons of each one and she ranked them from like 1 to 5. So it was absolutely money well spent. So I wouldn't look at that really as being innovative. I would just look at that as just being smart, like working smarter, not being a busy fool, and just trying to maintain your sanity as a solopreneur, basically.
That's fair enough, and they're great points, Louise, in fairness. Keeping with the topic of innovation then, you were planning a pivot to online learning and you were delving into online consultancy long before March 2020 and the repeated lockdowns that followed. How has this experience been for you?
Yeah, so the motivation for the pivot was a good chat with my accountant, and he was pointing out mileage and costs basically of driving all over Ireland and delivering training in person. So we doubled my fee, and do you know what happened, Patrick? Nothing happened. The sky didn't fall down on top of me and the world didn't stop turning. And it was just the fee was the fee, and it was accepted. But I think I had done so much work in those years carving myself out as a specialist. But I also, had to put in place like post-training support for a month. There was other things that I was doing anyway that I wasn't drawing attention to as part of the package. So that was a big learning curve. So that was the idea behind it, that I could just open up my laptop and train somebody one-to-one rather than getting in the car and driving and all that time and parking and all the rest of it. So that was great in one way. And that was really great because I was still doing a mix of in-house training. So I was still, driving around the country, but my fee structure had changed and I was doing conference talks. But then when I was in the office, I could put in like maybe 3 one-to-ones then in the course of a day when I was in the office. So I was able to plan my calendar a lot better. But the strange thing was that there was a bit of resistance, to this whole online training one-to-one. But some people were just like, oh gosh, like Zoom? What's Zoom? Okay. So I had to create a how-to doc, on Zoom and how to share your screen and to do all this and all that. So I look back on that now and I have to laugh because I had to do a good bit of work to convince people, it's okay. I'll be there to hold your hand through all the technical stuff, because some of the people that I would work with would be incredibly senior in their roles, and they quite openly admit that they are just complete technophobes, but they know they need LinkedIn because they're either thinking of changing jobs or they're early retiring and they want to become a consultant. And fair play to them. They want to upskill in this and they trust me and to help them to do this. So now that's all changed. Oh my goodness. People are on Zoom, people are on Google Meet, people are on Teams, the whole shebang. So I have to say, I've found that I've just found that whole shift and just this acceptance overnight and this upskilling overnight into online training mad in one way, looking back on how much work I had to do previously. And so then the online school, so we could do a whole podcast on that now another time, but we won't. So I think what I learned from that is quite naive going into it. And it's a second business. Like, it has its own rules, it has its own market, and it's a startup. And to anybody who is looking to create an online school, it's not just, all right, I'll do a couple of videos and I'll throw them up there. Because the minute you move into that online training platform, and the minute you start taking automated payments from people, like, you have obligations, from a legal point of view, from a privacy policy point of view, from a VAT point of view, if you're over the VAT threshold. And a big thing for me that I didn't have a clue, because I sell like B2B, business to business primarily. But then when you move into the online school territory, all of a sudden you flip into B2C. And that's a completely different game altogether.
And as well as the inherent challenges in moving from B2B to B2C, you had to undergo a voluminous amount of research to make an informed decision as to what virtual home you would choose for your LinkedIn school. And when you were deciding on a platform for your LinkedIn school, you explored some options from Kajabi to Teachable. Can you speak a little bit about your experience with these platforms and what you ultimately decided to use and why?
Yes. So initially, I went with Kajabi. And I was on Kajabi for 3 months, and then I had to take the school down from Kajabi and then move it over to Teachable. And there were a few reasons for this. So what I found with Kajabi is, and I was in a couple of forums, and I asked people when I was beginning to get really, and this is only me personally now speaking, when I was getting really frustrated with it, I reached out to 1 or 2 forums and I was like, look, I'm on Kajabi for X, Y, or Z. I'm thinking of moving. I'm thinking of going to Teachable. Can anybody tell me, the differences? And the same responses were coming back going, Kajabi is a marketing tool. Its automations, its marketing is great. But as an online school, it doesn't put the student at the center. Whereas Teachable is an online school first and foremost. And then there are marketing elements around that. So for me, gradually, everything just started to become really, really, really difficult on Kajabi. And the big issue was around VAT and EU VAT. So look, I'm not an expert, right? But luckily I had trained a tax director before. And I had pinged her an email saying, look, I'm doing all this research online and I'm setting up an online school, and not all training is exempt from VAT. And that's something that so many people say to me, oh, your training are exempt from VAT. So not all training is exempt from VAT first and foremost. But look, when you move into the online space, there's like EU VAT rules that apply, and they look at it like, they can, depending on what you're doing, they can look at it like a product. But if you're doing live training, so if just the medium, if it's still live training, but you're just doing it online, and if you're exempt from VAT, if you fall into those exemption categories, you're grand. But the minute it becomes automated, you can fall into VAT territory. So I got expert advice on that. So technically, my school was an electronically supplied service if you're over the VAT threshold. So why am I telling you all this? Is because Kajabi, when I was using it at the start of last year, Kajabi doesn't handle EU VAT. And their advice was to get a third-party tool called Quaderno. So I did. But for you to plug Quaderno into Kajabi, you have to upgrade to a higher plan. So all of a sudden you're paying €50 for this third-party tool. And so in reality, if somebody goes to the checkout page of your course and they live in the UK and somebody else lives in Ireland and you qualify for VAT, there's different VAT rates. And so Kajabi were telling me I should have a different landing page for the countries that I sell to. So you could have potentially like 10 different landing pages. And I was like, no. So then they said Quaderno, and Quaderno will know what location you're in. And when you click the drop down arrow for the price, it'll just change it automatically, which is brilliant. And you get a big report in the back end, but it's €50 a month, basically. And here's the kicker. For you to integrate Quaderno into Kajabi, you need another tool called Zapier. And to do all this, you can't use the basic Zapier package. You have to pay. So then that's €20 because you need a filter, and filters are from a higher plan. So I say all this like I know what I'm talking about, but at one stage I had 3 support tickets open with 3 different platforms because none of them had said that you needed to create a filter in Zapier. So I was testing courses. I was giving myself like 99% discounts. And what happened was, because there was no filter set up, when I was paying for one course, it was granting me access to 3, 4, 5 courses. So let's just say when 3 of them came back and said, oh, you just haven't installed a filter. You need to install a filter. You need to you need to upgrade to get the filter plan. And I was just like, why is this not in any of your help docs, like your step-by-step guides? So look, when you add it up, right, that's €70 a month just for those 2 tools. And then the Kajabi package I was on was around 130, I think. So you're talking €200 a month just to host your school and handle EU sales. That's before you've sold anything. So that's ridiculous. So look, I just took my school down. I emailed Kajabi and I explained the problem, and they said, yes, we're aware. We're working on it. It's in our rollout plan. So do you know what? I just bit the bullet. It kind of broke my heart. So I had to take the school down, and literally I had to build it all over again in Teachable. I had to learn a brand new platform. I was in and out of the knowledge bank. I had queries going over back and forth. I had to create 6 new courses. That means you have to upload all the videos. You have to build the course pages. You have to build checkout pages, and you have to test the payment gateways as well. So there was tears there now last year, but I'm in hindsight, like, it was the best thing for me. And Teachable is great, I have to say. Other people have asked me about Thinkific, and there's another one beginning with P. And so my advice is just go, if you're thinking of buying one and you live in the EU, just go to their help page and type in EU VAT. And if you see the words Quaderno, just think carefully about what you're going to get yourself into.
There's some great insights and some sage advice for some core creative listeners there for sure. So Louise, it's not just your LinkedIn school. You've done a lot of work on your website, and there are sales funnels and customer journey options throughout. Congratulations on all of this work, firstly. And how has the response been to the redesign, and how have the new product offerings been going?
Yeah, so the response to the redesign has been great. I mean, there's been lots of lovely comments and feedback. So I built my site on Weebly myself, and it's still on Weebly. And I got a specialist Weebly redesign company to do it. So I've written all the words myself, like website copywriter, SEO copywriter. It was just the look and the feel had to be upgraded, and the SEO is still, it's ranking highly, thankfully. So people on the training side of it, people love the 2 free short courses that I have, and I have to say that's a great sales funnel, and on many respects. So number one, they log into the free course, and I'm giving away some good stuff on the free courses, to be fair. And so they get to just see the quality of my videos, know how professionally they were made and how professionally they were edited. And they get to see me, in action. And it's a huge trust building exercise as well, which is really, really important when somebody doesn't know you and they're looking at making this investment. And for job seekers, it could be quite a personal investment. So that's really important. And then from a really marketing point of view, so I get those email addresses into my mailing list, and that's actually where I would generate quite a bit of my sales, would be through that mailing list. And I do give away discounts exclusively in that list. And if I ever add a new freebie course, so for example, I added the hashtag open to work. I created a new little free short course on that, and I told everybody on my mailing list a week and a half before I put anything on social media. And they've gotten some discounts that I never advertise on social media as well. So again, this is all new to me, that B2C side. And so I'm learning as I go. But yeah, I'm really enjoying that part of it, and it's just lovely. I'm getting really good feedback. So again, a lot of work, and that was a big decision as well to kind of upgrade the site. But I'm really glad that it's all worked out.
That's great to hear, Louise, and congrats on all the work on the website again. So, not content with all of that, you're also heavily involved in Network Cork, and you co-founded the Powerhouse Collective. How important has peer support and networking groups been for you and for the growth and development of SmartFox?
So quite simply, it has been absolutely essential, and it's been absolutely critical, like on numerous levels. And people buy from people. And, when I'm going into sales teams and business development teams, and they're saying, oh, where do I click here and click here? And, oh, how do I add these people? And I just have to bring them back to the start and go, why would I trust you? And people buy from people, and how do we get that across on your profiles? And I always say this, to anybody who's a potential job seeker or who's made redundant, like I was suddenly, like as an employee, like back when I was working in-house, let's say, when I was in Morgan McKinley and then when it's teamwork.com, like I knew nobody in marketing in Cork outside of those companies. And if you think about it, I went to college in Limerick, I lived in Dublin, went to college in Dublin, I lived in New Zealand, and then I came straight back to Cork and went to college in Cork in my postgrad for a couple of months in UCC. And then I went straight in-house. And I really, like, if I had known how important marketing was and just getting to know other people in your industry, I should have joined Network Cork way, way, way back, but I didn't. And I think the reality of how unconnected I was hit me like a ton of bricks when I was made redundant. I had nobody, I didn't know any marketing directors that I could go to and say, are you looking for somebody? Are you hiring? Or do you know of anybody who is hiring? And then I remember about a year and a half ago, one of my friends from Network Cork who works in hospitality, she just said in passing one day, oh God, I've had like 3 jobs in the last 7 years. And you know what? I've never interviewed for any of them. I've just been headhunted, and I've just been basically, poached. And I was like, what? And she was like, but it's hospitality and everybody knows everybody. And that actually, I remember I just kind of stood still, and I was like, that's what happened to me, or that's what didn't happen to me back when I was made redundant. I didn't know any marketer outside of the company that I was working in. And bizarrely, I ended up joining Network Cork about 2 weeks before I got made redundant. And, this is no exaggeration, but joining Network Cork actually changed my life. And I didn't realize it at the time. So I was there for about the first year. And actually, would you believe I met my graphic designer at my very first event that I almost didn't go to because it was a few days after I was made redundant. So I had no business card, I had no job, I had no identity. And so like, I can't believe I still went. Like, I had to dig deep that night. And there was a girl sitting beside me, and we were chatting, and she was an illustrator and a graphic designer, and she was lovely, and we connected. And then I needed a graphic designer when I founded SmartFox, and I got in touch with her, and we bartered. So I gave her 2 hours of digital marketing support every week for a month, and she created the Fox logo. So she's responsible for all my branding, everything, like the brown, the green, the fox, the whole shebang came from Paula. Her name's Paula Real Illustration. And I think if that doesn't show you like the power of networking, I don't know what does. So then with Network Cork, I took it up another gear, and I was asked to join the committee as a social media exec. So I did that for 2 years. And as I said earlier, we grew the following to over 17,000 followers across all the platforms. And at one stage we had like the biggest following out of all the branches, bigger than Network Ireland, which is the umbrella group for 15 branches. And we were finalists in the Cork Digital Marketing Awards twice in the Best Twitter category. And we're a charity, so we have no budget. So I'm very proud of all those achievements. And now I've moved to the membership team. So I'm a membership exec. And, I've jot forms left, right and centre. And, we have like an online member directory that we just released to our members a few days ago. So it's a really busy role, but it's a great role. And again, I've met so many people through it. And people ask me about like, are you getting business from it? And I say, initially you don't, because you don't really know anybody, but then the longer you're in it and the more work you put into it and the more you reach out, the more you get back from it. And like I've been a finalist twice in Best New Emerging Business categories at the Network Cork Businesswoman of the Year Awards, and I get huge coverage from that. That's really powerful. And like I've been a guest speaker at other networks, at other branches, and like I know so many now across like Network Ireland as a whole. And I've made like really good friends, like business friends that I can ask for advice, and other solopreneurs. And, when we chat, like even this morning I was chatting to a friend of mine from Network Cork, and she was just saying that she had spent days doing 2 proposals, and she felt like she was going to get them because she'd worked with these clients previously. And then they both turned around and had this wishy-washy excuse. And she was just like, oh my God. And you can talk about these things, with other solopreneurs, and that's really important. And lastly, the Powerhouse Collective. So basically, we're 6 female entrepreneurs, all women. And I was the only North Cork person. They were all West Cork. So now I've moved down to Clonakilty. So, we're all as one now from West Cork. And we launched in the first week of March 2020. And I have to say, I've never experienced anything like it. Like the response was phenomenal. And it was really good timing because it was International Women's Week as well. So what do we do? So we're 6 female entrepreneurs, and we each have a different skill set. So Anna Gronica is a photographer, and Skurta Lisa is a hair and makeup. So she would have partnered with Anna anyway, for photo shoots. And Sharon Huggard is a stylist and a coach, and Sherna Malone is a skincare consultant, and Annie Healy is a mindset coach and business coach, and I'm LinkedIn and personal branding. And so what we found was that just naturally, instinctively, we were all working with the same types of women predominantly. So high-level executives who were either keen just to build up their profile online or get executive career coaching or get professional headshots done because they were going into maybe the speaking kind of conferencing space. And so we ended up kind of referring clients to each other anyway, just naturally. And then Anna Healy just came up with the brainwave. She said, oh my God, why don't we just form like a collective? And there's no better name than Powerhouse, because, you have 6 hardworking female entrepreneurs. And so that's just been absolutely wonderful. And I'm in Network Cork, and Anna, Sharon, and Anna Healy. So the 2 Annas, we're there in Network West Cork. So it shows the power of networking, but also, women in business, and just the power of what happens when women come together. So it's just been great, and I love it. And they're kind of half responsible for me moving to Clonakilty as well.
A ringing endorsement indeed. Now, this is admittedly somewhat of a pivot question, and I'm not going to reveal my own personal biases here, but given your work and involvement in training, many days must feel like video conferencing bingo, with everything from Zoom to Teams to Meet to WebEx and back again. Do you have a preference? Do you calibrate your training approach depending on the video conferencing tool that you have to use?
Okay, so that's, yeah, a really interesting question. So for meetings, like for one-to-one, or like let's say Powerhouse Collective meeting or Network Cork committee meeting, I don't really have a preference. Like I can use Google Meet because I use G Suite, for my SmartFox email. I use Microsoft Teams, depending, but by far and away, Zoom is I think the most used platform from what I've seen. However, when we move into webinars, I do have a preference. So I use Microsoft Teams purely because I think the way I look at it is that I'm using Microsoft Office anyway. So I'm paying anyway for my Excel, for my PowerPoint, and so on. And then when you look at Zoom, they're charging €37 for their 100-person webinar plan, and then the cost goes up if you've more than 100 people. So I guess when I was looking at it, I was just like, why would I pay €37 more for Zoom and pay for Microsoft Office when I can just get Office and get live events included in that? I'm also really curious to check out Crowdcast. So they've been around for a while, for the webinars. And I was just playing around with another one the other day called Demio. And Demio by name is Demio by nature. So I'm on a trial plan, and before I knew it, they're taking me through the induction process and onboarding me, and had just automated a fake webinar to take you through all the steps. I thought it was unbelievable. I was like, how are they doing this? So they get you straight in using the tool immediately. The only thing is that is quite pricey. I think it was like €99, I think was the cheapest plan. So again, and this is just a question, when the pandemic hit and people started moving into webinars, they were all free. And I've noticed now that this is creeping in, like maybe a 15, €20 charge for webinars. And I can totally understand why, because if you need then to pay for webinar tools, I think that's going to be quite common. And a big thing I would just say in general is for webinars, if you're a speaker, you're the speaker, you're not the admin. You cannot be both, and don't try and be both. So I don't know if you've heard, Patrick, of this, but I'm beginning to hear of a lot more people who are just saying, oh yeah, I'm the webinar admin now on that, or I'm the meeting admin. So people are hiring whoever to kind of, if it's more Zoom, when it's a meeting, they're letting people into the room, or the Q&A part as well, if they're publishing questions, they're keeping questions hidden. So if you are a solopreneur, I would just say either ask a friend or an associate or somebody, and pay them, obviously, to be the admin, because you can't be both.
Thanks, Louise. That's great insight indeed. And I will certainly agree with your advice about, I suppose, picking a lane when choosing between being a meeting admin or the presenter or the host of the meeting. It's best to do one or the other, and not to tax yourself unnecessarily by doing both at the same time. So, Louise, on to a somewhat related question, and it's a question that I ask all Creative Cork guests. What piece of technology can you not live without, and why?
So, I've been thinking about this one a bit, and I was trying to be really practical and not say the typical one. So, I had a list, and one was a microwave. So I literally couldn't live without that, because it's food, it's related to food. And then electric toothbrush, that's amazing as well. But obviously, of course, it has to be my phone. Everything, from listening to my podcasts, Spotify, but also because I suppose I need internet on my laptop, I hotspot from it a lot, depending on where I am. And, I might stream some stuff as well from it. But ironically, during the day, I started to sign out of Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. I sign out of Facebook permanently, more or less, and I might log in maybe once or twice, just to have a look at some Network Cork stuff, and Instagram as well. So I know that might sound quite unusual, but it's a productivity task that I started experimenting with and it just seems to work really well for me. And so unfortunately I can't live without my phone.
That's a common response, Louise. Apple and Google have done their job well. So, Louise, what are your plans for the coming months?
So I suppose, well, my priority is my role at VMware, which is fantastic. So, I'm settling in there and I'm rolling out my strategy and my objectives. And so I'm having a great time there. And SmartFox is still very much up and running. And so I've been looking at different ways of selling. So I'm quite interested in the affiliate program that Teachable have. So I love this because it's really transparent in Teachable. Like there's a whole section for affiliates. So basically what I mean by that is, so I would have a lot of really good relationships and partnerships with various career coaches, executive coaches, recruitment agencies, and students of my courses, or graduates and people who have gone through the courses and who've given testimonials. And so what I find is happening, which is amazing, is that, and even people in other networks that I know and other places I've spoken to, that they're referring people to me. So if somebody says, oh God, I don't have a clue about LinkedIn, or do you know anybody who trains in LinkedIn? They'll say, yes, I do. So I'm very lucky that I'm getting amazing referrals. And I've always thought about how can I thank them? So I was doing a bit of research with various bits of Teachable, and I was looking at the affiliate section. So the way it works is that I would give somebody a custom code that they would put on the end of my course, the URLs for the different courses. And it's totally up to them. Some people might put it on their website. Some people might just have it. And if somebody says, do you know anybody, they'll send them on the link. Some people might put it out in their mailing list. It depends. And I could give a discount on that as well. And they would just get a little commission, like 10% commission on the price of the course. Which I think is fair, because they're doing this anyway. They're sending people my way anyway. So in Teachable, you can create a new role for that person. You can create them as an affiliate, and there's a whole section that will just calculate the amount of money or the amount of courses that link has, that purchases have been made through that link. And then there's just a monthly payment then that goes over to that person. So I'm really, really, really keen to explore that. And I've been in touch with a few people, and they're just like, yeah, like you give me a link and I get 10%. And they're just like, sign me up, send me over. So that is wonderful. I'm still doing webinars, which I love doing, especially for job seekers. So I've got a few of them coming up because, Patrick, unfortunately, with so many people who are out of work at the moment and have been made redundant, this is a huge area. So it's mostly kind of government agencies that are now getting in touch with me, because I think they're under I wouldn't say huge pressure, but I think that the volume of people that they're dealing with has gone up. And as somebody who was unemployed for 5 months, I know exactly what it's like. And, if you've no money coming in. So that's why I'll always do webinars, like 1-hour webinars for job seekers, because it's just something I really believe in, and it's just corporate social responsibility, and it's just the right thing to do. And that's why I have free short courses on my site for job seekers as well, because I just know how important that is. And people think I've so much on my plate. People think, and they're going to laugh when I hear this one, but I'll still be doing like the odd one-to-one online training as well. But what I'm going to do there is I'm going to look at doing a package for maybe like a 1-hour session with me, and then a heavily discounted price on one of the online courses. So I started doing that recently, and that's really popular because you get the best of both worlds. So you can do the online training course first and work through all my steps. And all my online courses are the exact same material that I would do if I was training in person. So like the mega masterclass courses for sales is the equivalent of me being in your company from 9:30 till 5:00, basically. It's the exact same material. And so then just outside of that, not particularly related to Smart Fox, but, I'll be heavily involved in Network Cork. I'm really looking forward to experiencing a West Cork summer. I'm actually so excited. And I write creative fiction as well. And I've been published twice in just a little short story competition that's run by Cork County Council. So that's amazing. And I have a writers group as well that I run. And we're writing good pieces. I don't know what's going on. I think the creative vibe is coming back now with the longer days. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to the rest of 2021, to be honest. Taking everything into stock. It's a very exciting time, and we've all come through a tough enough year, and the days are getting longer, and there's light and there's brightness on the horizon.
That is genuinely great to hear so much positivity on so many different levels, I suppose. So the final question, with such a diverse and innovative career, I'm sure you have a lot of advice to impart. And I'm very conscious of the fact that it's a challenging time at the moment for job seekers, with many either made redundant or waiting for major sectors of the economy to reopen. What would your advice for them be?
Yeah, so I've actually written like a few blogs about this. So if anybody wants to pop over to smartfox.ie and go to the blog, you can see that. But I think the main things is that looking for a job is like a full-time job. And even within that, it's like a full-time sales and marketing job. And sales wouldn't have been my forte ever. And I've had to learn kind of the hard way through working for myself. So I don't know how practical this is, but if I could go back to myself when I was job seeking, I would just say sign up for some sales webinars, like free sales webinars, and just practice that subtle art of selling. And people buy from people, and when you are a job seeker, you're selling yourself, your skills, your expertise, what makes you better and different, and what you can bring to the company, and that's an art in itself. Another piece of advice I would give would be, it's like a data gathering exercise, interviews and job applications. And I've got that piece of advice from another podcast called How to Fail with Elizabeth Day. And I can't remember the woman's name, but she's also known as, she runs a podcast called The Guilty Feminist. And this lady, she actually started off in improv and used to teach acting. And she said to graduates, when they come out of drama school and they've no experience and they're just going from endless audition to audition, she said, don't focus on getting the audition. She said, think of it like a data gathering exercise. And so what happens when you go in and you're feeling great and you're full of energy? How do you feel? How does it go? What happens when you go in and, you're tired or you're a bit nervous? Like, how does that go? And so you're taking away the whole win-lose element and you're just treating it like a data gathering exercise. And of course, no surprise, but LinkedIn is critical. And a couple of weeks ago, I heard a very senior recruiter say that your CV doesn't matter when you need to be found on LinkedIn first. And it actually kind of stopped me in my tracks. So to hear it said so bluntly, it's actually a good thing. And I just feel that there are a lot of people out there, unfortunately, who don't realize just how essential and it's critical nowadays for you to have an optimized profile and to have all your keywords in there so that you can appear in recruiter searches. And another piece of advice I would say, and I alluded to this earlier, is work your network. And if you're like me and if you don't know anybody in your industry outside of your company, there are free like networking events that you can attend. And with the online events now, a lot of them will do breakout rooms or a lot of them will do like one-to-one chats. So look, it mightn't be your cup of tea, it mightn't be your thing, but like just dig deep and you have to do it. And we always say Network Cork, networking It's like a muscle. And the more you work it, like the stronger that muscle becomes. And you can always just connect with people on LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn. Another tip would be get interview coaching. And this is something I should have done. And this is something I didn't do. And interviewing is an art in itself. And it doesn't matter how chatty you are or how confident or how outgoing you are. There is a very subtle thread of selling and influencing that goes through an interview. I've now realized in hindsight. And lastly, just mind yourself. I interviewed full time for 5 months and I got burnt out. And it makes an awful impact on your mindset. And, why can't I win? Why won't anybody hire me? What am I doing wrong? So just if you find yourself in that frame of mind, go to an interview coach, because unfortunately there's an art and there is a way to succeed in interviews if you are the right person for that job. And sometimes you mightn't get a job, and like, it's such a cliche, but it just wasn't meant for you. And I know my mother said that to me one time, and I actually had to walk out of the room, because it was like 5 months into my job search, and I was just like, nah, there's something bigger going amiss here. And then the irony is, I started working for myself, and I started winning clients, and I started landing all these gigs and selling and carving out this niche, like unbeknownst to me. So if you are in an industry maybe where you can freelance, or if you have an idea, I would say look into that, because that is actually very impressive. And when you go into an interview, you have concrete examples of, I did this, I created this. And the bottom line is, how are you going to make this company more money if you're in a marketing role? So if you've worked for yourself, and if you can give examples of where you have sold, you have landed clients, you got invoices paid, you got money coming into your account, you've run a business. I think if you're interviewing for an SME and you're being interviewed by a managing director, they will tap into that massively. And that can be very, very impressive.
Thanks, Louise. There's a lot of great actionable and practical advice there. Really useful. Thanks, Louise, for taking the time to join the Cork Creative podcast. I learned a lot, and I'm sure our listeners did too. If you would like to learn more about Louise, her career, online school, webinar or guest speaker opportunities, you can find her on, and this is a surprise to no one I'm sure, on LinkedIn. Smartfox.ie will bring you to her online courses, including 2 free short courses, and her blog with more free tips. You will find these links in the show notes for this podcast also. I hope you will come back on the podcast again to speak about your developing digital portfolio, Louise. Every good luck for 2021 and beyond.